Good morning, everybody. Today's hearing will discuss new facts and evidence regarding Nazis' collaboration with Swiss banks. Given the important and historical nature of this matter, the committee has rightfully come together for a bipartisan consensus hearing. I thank Ranking Member Durbin for his support and collaboration, and I also thank that Senator Whitehouse for his involvement in this for a period of time. This hearing's part of my and Senator Whitehouse's ongoing investigation into Credit Suisse historic servicing of Nazi-linked accounts. We launched this investigation last Congress when Senator Whitehouse and I led the respective caucuses of the Senate Budget Committee. This hearing serves as an interim investigative update. I want everybody to know that I appreciate Senator Whitehouse's leadership on this matter. It's said that history repeats itself. Unfortunately, in the case of this investigation, history is in a time loop. We're living through a modern-day David versus Goliath story, and we all know how the David battle turned out. A few days ago, UBS took action which would result in silencing the Simon Wiesenthal Center. The center's representative serves as a witness today at the very same table with the bank that tried to silence him. Before we get to that, let's take stock of where we've come from. In March of 2020, the Simon Wiesenthal Center notified Credit Suisse that it found information relating to the bank's Nazi ties. The bank initially agreed to investigate. It hired a research firm to conduct a forensic review. It retained former TARP Inspector General Neil Barofsky to oversee that review. But after the investigation uncovered damaging information, the bank paused its review, limited access to records, and terminated Barofsky. The bank cited so-called performance issues for the termination. That was entirely false. Indeed, if anything, Neil Barofsky performed all too well. In true dedicated fashion, Barofsky drafted a report about what he found. So last Congress, then Chairman Whitehouse and I issued the Budget Committee's first subpoena since 1991 to obtain and release that report to the public. We also obtained the forensic auditor's report. The reports uncovered historical information. The report said that Credit Suisse didn't review and investigate all relevant records regarding its Nazi past and applied excessive scope restrictions to its review. Even with those limitations, the investigation revealed new information, including nearly 100 Nazi-linked accounts, many previously undisclosed. Some accounts remained open until the 1990s. One remained open as recently as 2020. Then UBS acquired Credit Suisse. With this acquisition came new leadership, and the investigation was brought back to life. At that point in time, credit belonged to UBS for working to right some Credit Suisse wrongs. Inspector General Barofsky was rehired and provided significant resources to run the investigation. The bank has spent millions of dollars supporting that investigation. Those resources have funded archival and forensic research by historians and experts who search for facts around the world. But just like the bank it acquired, UBS snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. The unfettered access and spoken commitment to leave no stone unturned, which had resulted in great progress and great cooperation, now faces challenges. You might ask, when did this change in conduct begin? Well, right after UBS was made aware that this committee might hold a public hearing. Now, all of a sudden, UBS began withholding records from the investigation. Then Inspector General Barofsky learned about Gibbs and Dunn, the same law firm that's helping UBS take legal action against the Simon Wiesenthal Center in New York, is reviewing and filtering what information Barofsky could have access to. So UBS, through Gibbs and Dunn, has taken legal action against a Jewish human rights organization named after a famed Nazi hunter. And that same law firm is now a filter by which Inspector General Barofsky must rely upon their judgment as to what records he can access. And unfortunately, legal action came to a head just last week under Judge Corman in New York, where UBS essentially tried to block Simon Wiesenthal Center from fully speaking on all Holocaust issues right before this hearing. And coupled with that, UBS tried to limit Barofsky's testimony here today. These efforts, if successful, would have frustrated this committee's public hearing. UBS's conduct is absurd and a historic shame that'll outlive today's hearing. Now, before UBS's recent obstructive efforts, the investigation yielded new information. Based upon Barofsky's testimony, Credit Suisse maintained previously unreported and underreported wartime account relationships with arms of the Nazi government. Credit Suisse knew it held Nazi accounts and yet withheld some information from the public record, including commissions examining the Holocaust. Today, we'll also hear about the forced transfer of Jewish assets and how Credit Suisse facilitated the escape networks known as rat lines that Nazi Jews to flee justice following the war. This investigation has reaffirmed that Swiss banks haven't historically shown neutrality. In fact, they managed to get away with essentially being part of the Axis powers while not fully paying for the consequences. This committee's investigation, as well as Inspector General Barofsky's, is about uncovering the truth once lost to history. UBS's recent conduct impedes that effort and sabotages its own efforts to show accountability. To UBS, I strongly urge you to find a way to make peace before it's too late to repair the damage the bank has done. To Rabbi Cooper, there may be rough roads ahead, but I trust you'll never lose sight of the fact that God is not neutral in this fight. Senator Durbin.
Thanks to the chairman of the committee, Senator Grassley, and to Senator Whitehouse for their extraordinary work on this issue. Thank you to the 4 witnesses who are joining us this morning. I look forward to hearing from you. January 27 was International Holocaust Remembrance Day. On that day in 1945, the Allies, in particular the Soviet Red Army, liberated Auschwitz. Over 6 million Jewish people, 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population, were exterminated by the Nazis and their collaborators during the Holocaust, including 1 million lives lost at Auschwitz. As time goes on and living memory fades, it becomes increasingly important that the events and lessons of the Holocaust are not forgotten, are not revised, and are not rewritten. Today's hearing is a reminder that we still have a responsibility to reckon with the true events of the Holocaust and the role various actors played in their propagation and aftermath. This hearing provides us with an opportunity to examine the past in order to learn its lessons and honor the promise, never again. I look forward to today's discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley, and thank you, Ranking Member Durbin, for this hearing to continue the work that then Ranking Member Grassley and I began at the Budget Committee in the last Congress. As Chairman Grassley has so well described, this has been a lengthy saga, and it continues today. In early 2023, with full bipartisan support, the Senate Budget Committee issued its first subpoena since 1991 to obtain a groundbreaking report written by Neil Barofsky, a witness here today, about Credit Suisse's historical servicing of Nazi-related clients and accounts. At the time, Mr. Barofsky had been fired from his role as independent ombudsman overseeing the bank's internal investigation into its Nazi history, and Credit Suisse was trying to bury the report. As a result of our bipartisan investigation, that report became public. Eventually, Mr. Barofsky was rehired to finish the work he'd been hired to complete in the first place. When we first launched our Budget Committee investigation in 2023, I said, and I will say again, that when presented with credible evidence of Credit Suisse's wrongdoing, the Budget Committee had an obligation to investigate. Because of our joint work, never-before-seen information about the role that Credit Suisse played in servicing Nazi accounts, many of them central to the Nazi war effort, is finally being laid bare. Significant findings include Credit Suisse maintained previously undisclosed accounts for nearly 100 individuals who were either senior Nazi officials in Germany or members of Nazi-affiliated groups in Argentina, including members of the SS. Credit Suisse held accounts for entities directly involved in assisting Nazis flee Europe and escape justice after World War II via the so-called rat lines. Credit Suisse directly backed German government offices responsible for the extermination of Jewish people during the Holocaust. This is information that Holocaust victims, their families, and the public deserve to know. I'm pleased to have Mr. Barofsky here to discuss his most recent discoveries, and I look forward to receiving additional information as Mr. Barofsky completes his work over the next several months. So again, a lengthy saga it has been. But it is also a saga that has demonstrated what good bipartisan congressional oversight can achieve. Chairman Grassley has long been a dogged champion of congressional oversight, and for that I admire him. That is one of the reasons we partnered on this investigation. Elected officials working across the aisle to expose wrongdoing, malfeasance, and misconduct is essential to advancing transparency, promoting accountability, guaranteeing public trust in private institutions, and I would add, in public institutions as well, and pursuing justice. As we listen to Mr. Barofsky's important testimony today, I hope that my colleagues see what we can achieve through rigorous bipartisan oversight. Because when this hearing is over, there'll be plenty of oversight left to do, especially in this committee. To the witnesses, thank you for being here today. Rabbi Cooper, thank you for the keystone work of the Simon Wiesenthal Center in upholding the legacy of its namesake and shining light on abuses of the Nazis and their enablers. Mr. Barofsky, thank you for your unwavering stewardship in your role as independent ombudsman to ensure that Credit Suisse and its successor, UBS, provide the access you need to complete a comprehensive examination of Credit Suisse's historical role servicing Nazi clients. And UBS, I want to thank you too, but also make clear our continuing expectations about your commitment to uncovering the truth about Credit Suisse's ignominious past. We understand that since you acquired Credit Suisse, rehired Mr. Barofsky, and committed to seeing through the investigation, you have generally provided him with the access he needs to complete his work. I trust that this access will continue as he finalizes that task. Acknowledging some of the concerns Chairman Grassley just raised, I remind you of the commitments that you made not only to this committee, but to the public. On July 31, 2023, General Counsel Jake Scrivens wrote to Senator Grassley and me, quote, Credit Suisse stands by its commitments to examine the issues raised by the Simon Wiesenthal Center and to cooperate with the Senate Budget Committee. Notwithstanding the 1999 global settlement, we have been researching the relevant historical questions and in a comprehensive report will provide the results as they can be ascertained today, end quote. Ask unanimous consent that that letter be entered into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Karofsky, Ms. Levi, that's the report with Mr. Barofsky's oversight that we still await. I trust that you will continue to stand by your company's commitments. Chairman Grassley, thank you again for bringing this matter forward in the last Congress and for your continued efforts to see it through. As always, we have a shared commitment to leaving no stone unturned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to introduce some documents in the record, and then I'm going to swear the witnesses, and then I'm going to introduce the witnesses, and then we'll hear from each of the witnesses. So like Senator Whitehouse, I ask on behalf of myself and him that the following documents relevant to our joint investigation be entered into the record without objection. Number one, report of the independent ombudsperson and independent advisor to Credit Suisse dated February 15th, 2023, and the first Alex Partners investigative report dated March 31st, 2023. Now would people stand for the oath? Thank you. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I see affirmative action or answer to that. Rabbi Cooper has been a longtime activist of Jewish and human rights causes. He's the Associate Dean and Director of Global Social Action for the Simon Wiesenthal Center, a leading global Jewish human rights organization. He helped establish that center in 1997. He also recently served as chair of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. Robert Barofsky, Karofsky became co-president of Global Wealth Management and president of UBS Americas in July of 2024. Before joining UBS in 2015, he was an analyst and trader working for various financial institutions. Ms. Levi has been UBS's Group General Counsel since 2021. In her role there, she provides legal advice and manages the group's legal affairs. She's been admitted to the Supreme Court of the United States, the New York State Bar, and the Bar of Milan, Italy, and has worked in several law firms in New York and Milan. Inspector General Barofsky currently serves as the independent ombudsperson for over Credit Suisse investigation into the historical Nazi ties. He's a partner at Jenner and Block and has nearly 2 decades of experience with independent oversight. This includes serving as the inaugural Inspector General for the Troubled Asset Relief Program. Thank you for all being here today, and particularly for Ms. Levi flying here from Switzerland. Rabbi Cooper, please go ahead with your introduction.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, ranking members of the committee, and distinguished guests. I'm very thankful and grateful to be here today. With my dear friend and mentor, Rabbi Marvin Heyer, I've dedicated my life to Simon Wiesenthal's mission to pursue truth and to hold all actors in the Holocaust, torture, and mass murder legally and morally accountable. In your hands rests an unprecedented opportunity to look under the hood of the banking machinery that facilitated genocide. That machinery provided financial sanctuary to Nazis fleeing prosecution and led to the concealment of Nazi criminal proceeds before, during, and after World War II. Simon Wiesenthal knew that accountability must extend beyond the people who operated the gas chambers. He knew this as a survivor of 5 Nazi death camps, who lost 89 family members and went on to become the famed Nazi hunter. You have read and will hear more details about our work and the extent of findings from Mr. Barofsky. The body of work reveals an uncomfortable historical truth. The Nazis were bankrolled. Previous efforts to investigate Swiss Bank's role were significant, but they were incomplete. They focused primarily on Jewish assets, a very important issue, but only part of the story. What was largely left untouched were Nazi-linked accounts, shell corporations, and financial networks that helped Nazis safeguard their criminal proceeds and escape justice. With the help of Jonathan Misner, Andrew Beato of Stein, Mitchell, Beato, and Misner, Amelia DeSanto Advanced Strategies, Simon Wiesenthal Center researchers on 4 continents, and Father Patrick Dubois, a Vatican advisor on relations with Judaism, we provided important research and information to Mr. Barofsky. Indeed, Credit Suisse asked us to do so. The investigation has yielded historical clarity, but also periods of acrimony. Credit Suisse tried to close the investigation not long after it started. The Simon Wiesenthal Center sought protection from Chairman Grassley, the protector of whistleblowers. After acquiring Credit Suisse, UBS recommitted to the review under Barbara Levy's leadership. But that has changed as we near the end of the investigation. UBS is actively blocking important aspects of Mr. Barofsky's work. Additionally, just days before this hearing, UBS asked the court in the Eastern District of New York to enter an order that threatens the very existence of the Simon Wiesenthal Center's pursuit of our mission to bring truth to light. This is wrong. It's wrong that the Swiss banks sat on this historical truth for decades. It is wrong that the Simon Wiesenthal Center is in a fight for its life in an American court. Let me be very clear. Silencing researchers, intimidating human rights organizations, or restricting historical truth undermines integrity and weakens confidence. And when those with unlimited resources control the historical record, the issue is no longer about the past. It is a warning about the present and the future. This isn't just about dusty old papers in archives. This is about money in banks. You may ask, why does this matter now? We are living in a dangerous period. As you know, anti-Semitism is rising at levels not seen in generations. Since the atrocities of October 7th, we have witnessed a surge in hatred and denial. We see every day how moral clarity erodes when truth becomes negotiable. This investigation into Credit Suisse underscores a critical lesson. Genocide is not only an ideological crime, it is an economic one. Without the banks to facilitate transactions and hide Nazi assets, without the banks funding escape routes for Nazi war criminals, we would not have to be here today. And without accountability, profits from crimes against humanity quietly pass from one generation to the next. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your leadership, your moral clarity, and your commitment to the truth. Thank you and all of the senators.
Now, Mr. Karofsky.
Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Durbin, Acting Ranking Member Whitehouse, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Rob Karofsky. I'm president of UBS Americas and the co-president of Global Wealth Management at UBS.
And Senators, my name is Barbara Levi. I'm the Group General Counsel of UBS and a member of the Executive Board. I too appreciated the opportunity to testify today. This hearing is very important to me because I truly believe that UBS has done an unprecedented voluntary work to uncover the truth and bring historical facts to light. It is also important to me personally, as my family was tragically impacted by the Holocaust.
Thank you, Barbara. I appear before this committee today as the most senior U.S. executive of UBS and also as a proud Jewish American with deep knowledge of the Holocaust. We approach today's topic with solemn respect. The Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazis is the darkest chapter in human history and is an atrocity that continues to have profound meaning to this day. Although more than 80 years has passed since the fall of Nazi Germany, we can never allow ourselves to forget the systematic murder of 6 million Jews and the horror experienced by survivors. As many of you know, shortly after UBS's acquisition of Credit Suisse in 2023, UBS decided to look deeper into Credit Suisse's troubling World War II era history, including into the bank's possible connections with names identified by the Simon Wiesenthal Center. We shortly thereafter re-engaged Mr. Barofsky as Ombudsman to oversee the teams of researchers, archivists, and independent forensic experts to complete the investigation. We want to commend Mr. Barofsky on the new historical information that he and the team have helped us bring to light, for example, on the rat lines. As we discuss the current investigation, it is important to also understand the broader historical landscape. Over the last 30 years, UBS and Credit Suisse have undertaken massive efforts to examine their World War II era history. This includes an unprecedented audit of Swiss banks in 1996, led by former Federal Reserve Board Chair Paul Volcker, investigations by U.S. Congress and State Department, and investigations conducted by the independent Bergier Commission at the behest of Swiss Parliament. The findings of these investigations painted a deeply troubling picture that included many previously unreported, shameful acts by Swiss banks that were exposed, acknowledged, and ultimately addressed in a landmark, court-approved 1999 settlement. Under terms of this settlement, Credit Suisse and UBS agreed to pay $1.25 billion, an unprecedented amount at that time, which was distributed to victims of the Holocaust and their heirs by the court and court-appointed special masters. The settlement was comprehensive and involved release of all claims, whether known or unknown, in any way associated with Nazi Germany, including individual Nazis and associated entities, the Holocaust, World War II, its prelude and aftermath. The settlement was embraced in writing by leading Jewish NGOs, including the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Though legally binding, the closure of that settlement does not preclude continued examination for historical purposes. That is what UBS has done in a comprehensive search for new historical facts. As promised, UBS has provided Mr. Barofsky with unprecedented access to Credit Suisse's files and archives. The only exception has been certain communications between Credit Suisse and its attorneys during the 1990s because the Simon Wiesenthal Center and others have threatened us with litigation. That is why we have asked the court to clarify the scope of the settlement. But let me be clear about three things. First, we very much want to produce these privileged documents to Mr. Barofsky. Second, we have not sued the Simon Wiesenthal Center. And third, we have great respect for Rabbi Cooper and Mr. Barofsky and welcome the robust discussion that this committee has facilitated today. In conclusion, when we took over Credit Suisse almost 3 years ago, UBS fully committed to getting the Ombudsman's investigation back on track so that it could be completed. At the time, we at UBS did not have a clear understanding of this matter and how it was playing out. Now, with 3 years of experience, our priority is to complete this review so that the world can benefit from the findings in the final report. UBS will continue to follow the facts. We welcome your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Karofsky. Now, Mr. Barofsky.
Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Durbin, Senator Whitehouse, members of the committee, my name is Neil Barofsky, and it is my privilege to testify before you today as the independent ombudsperson. In that role, it is my job to provide independent oversight and ensure the integrity of the ongoing investigation into the ties between Credit Suisse and the Nazis before, during, and after World War II. As the chairman noted, my path to this hearing has not been an easy one. In 2022, I was fired by Credit Suisse when I refused to go along with its efforts to suppress the truth. But thanks to the encouragement of Chairman Grassley and then Chairman Whitehouse, I was rehired by UBS with a mandate to finish my job. I can't put in words how grateful I am to both of you for your trust in me and your support. I'd also like to thank my co-panelists, Rabbi Cooper and the Simon Wiesenthal Center. But for their courage, their refusal to be silenced, and their commitment, their deep, deep commitment that there is no such thing as an expiration date for accountability for those who enabled the Holocaust, there'd be no testimony today, and there'd be no investigation. I'd also like to thank UBS for rehiring me and for its commitment of resources. And although I disagree very strongly with Mr. Karofsky's characterization that the bank has any right under our engagement letter to withhold any relevant documents from us, privileged or otherwise, it is those resources that make all of this possible, including the final report that I plan to prepare by the end of this year, which will set forth not only additional details about what's in my testimony today, but the many other areas that are in scope and will be included as part of this investigation. In my testimony today, we talk about some of the previously unreported ties between Credit Suisse and some of the instrumentalities of the Nazi government. This includes accounts with something called the German Foreign Office. Now, when Hitler would invade a country, the German Foreign Office would get involved to help round up the Jews in those countries, herd them into ghettos, provincial transportation into the concentration and extermination camps. Credit Suisse had 4 accounts with the German Foreign Office, and these were administered at the highest levels of the Nazi government, with Adolf Hitler's own personal secret cabinet council of advisors dispatching the account manager in 1940 to go to Zurich to meet with officials at Credit Suisse to discuss the fund management of these accounts in the interest of the Third Reich. My testimony also corrects an historical error. Back in the 1990s, a Swiss-German journalist found in some German archives documents that indicated a relationship between Credit Suisse and the SS and its economic arm called DWB. Now, the SS, of course, was paramilitary organization used by the Nazis, whose responsibilities included the administration of the concentration camps. And DWB was part of its economic arm, part of the Nazi enterprise of profiting off of the Holocaust. This meant monetizing everything from the slave labor of concentration camp prisoners, from the theft of their assets and personal belongings when they got to the camps, and even monetizing murder, selling the hair that was shaved off of Jewish women and children as they were marched into the chambers. But Credit Suisse denied the existence of this account and said that there was no records in its archives. This investigation has proven that to be untrue. The investigation has found an account registry card in the name of Leo Volk, a convicted Nazi war criminal who oversaw the millions in Swiss francs in today's currency of dirty Nazi SS money that was in that account. The investigation has also disclosed for the first time how that money got there, how the SS used another account at Credit Suisse, this one in the name of a Swiss company that was on the Allied blacklists, to launder those funds. My testimony also discusses the role that Credit Suisse had as landlord and banker to an Argentine smuggling operation that smuggled Nazis out of Germany and into Argentina. Credit Suisse had maintained bank accounts for many of the key operatives of this so-called rat line. And it is almost certain that it is from those accounts that bribes were paid to French and Swiss officials in order to clear a path for these Nazi war criminals to a life of luxury and prosperity in Argentina as they fled Allied justice. I can't thank you enough for having this hearing today. As Rabbi Cooper mentioned, not only are we seeing a surge in anti-Semitism right now, we're also seeing its normalization. It's everywhere. College campuses, social media, political discourse, even from government officials at times. And one of the things that my testimony shows is what happens when the violent anti-Semitism preached by Hitler in the 1940s and some of the all too common voices of extremism today become mainstreamed. How respected institutions become ready, willing, and able to disregard their morality in pursuit of profits and power. Much like as my testimony describes how Credit Suisse, in order to avoid friction with the Nazis, was willing to execute the grabbing of assets out of its Jewish account holders and dropping them into the accounts of its Nazi bank clients. Time and time again, history has shown what happens when anti-Semitism is met with silence. Today, this committee speaks up. You're making it very clear. The Holocaust did happen. History does matter. And you are saying that never again, not on your watch, will anti-Semitism become normalized and part of business as usual for public and private institutions. Thank you. I look forward to answering any questions you may have. And Chairman Grassley, I would ask that you make my written testimony part of the record of this hearing.
It will be made a part of the record, yes. We have 7 minutes. We have 7-minute questions, one round apiece. So I'll start out with my 7 minutes. General Barofsky, you face challenges in overseeing the important and historic investigations. Credit Suisse wrongfully fired you. They smeared your reputation, and recently UBS has imposed access restrictions. So inform the committee how this past and current conduct has impacted your ability to get the job done. In your answer, please address how the current UBS leadership has reacted to your concerns.
It is, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's essential for me to be able to do this job, for me to be able to have access to all relevant documents. And the way to define relevant, these are accounts that indicate whether or not a particular Nazi or Nazi enabler had an account or didn't have an account. That's what we mean by relevant documents. And so when I agreed to come back to UBS, we framed our engagement letter in a way to make sure that what happened previously under Credit Suisse could not happen again. And so our engagement letter makes clear 3 different spots that we're entitled to all documents. The only exception is those that which the bank is prohibited from providing us under law. And so not being able to see a subset of privileged documents for those areas that these documents touch on could have a very significant impact on my ability to finish the job. I don't know what's in those documents. I don't know how it potentially impacts the decision of whether a Nazi had an account or did not have an account. I cannot tell the committee or anyone else if it impacts the extent of the relationships. And these are relevant documents. And just to give you as an example, when this dispute first arose, we gave a set of search terms to the bank. And those search terms were the names of the individuals and entities that are referenced in my written testimony. And we asked them to run them against a set of documents that the bank said might be privileged. And there were hits, there are positives. Those are the documents, some of the documents that are being withheld. And we need to have access to that information in order to finish the job.
Also, to you, describe to the committee the most important investigative findings that you've uncovered to date, and you may have just said that, but go into that.
Thank you. It's a hard question. I think people with different perspectives could look at different things and see different things as being the most important. Certainly the role of the Nazi clients who helped effectuate the Holocaust could be one. As a former prosecutor, the idea of the escape of justice that were facilitated by the Nazi rat lines that the bank was banked and was landlord to. But I think the one that hits me the deepest, Mr. Chairman, is the forced transfer of assets. I can't help, and we have descriptions of different ones, examples that are disclosing for the first time in my testimony, but I can't help but think of the civil servant. I spent most of my career working in government as a civil servant, and I just can't help but think of that individual saving money, bit by bit. You know, they're not well-paid positions, as we all know. And as sort of the horrors of the Holocaust and Nazi Germany in the 1930s started to descend, thinking, okay, I'm going to put my savings in a Swiss bank. That's where it'll be safe. That's where I can be sure that even if I don't make it out of this, maybe my kids or my grandchildren can have benefit of that money that I saved. And so for me, when I think about what must have gone through these people's minds when they found out that their assets, their life savings, are being plucked from their accounts and delivered to their Nazi oppressors. You know, and I think of the individual we talk about as he was boarded on a train to the concentration camp, to his eventual murder, sort of knowing that he had been left penniless at the hands of that Swiss bank. I think that's the one that impacts me the most.
Thank you for your information. I hope everybody knows the Senate will be watching and the truth will come out. It always does. Mr. Karofsky and Ms. Levi, It's my understanding that once the investigative report is finished, the Senate may not have access to a version that names all Nazi-linked account holders. So my question to both of you is, will UBS commit to providing a report with unredacted names to the Senate? If not, why not?
Chairman, thank you for the question. What we are doing at the moment, we are working with Mr. Barofsky to try really to provide as many names as possible. There are limitations due to Swiss law. However, we don't want to protect any of those names, and we will put our best efforts to provide as many names as possible.
Okay. Now I'm going to go to Rabbi Cooper. As I mentioned in my opening, this committee is aware of the legal action that UBS has taken against your organization. I want to thank you for being here. What are the three most important points you want the public to take away from this hearing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would say there are 3 points. Number one, the economic component of genocide. Genocides can only take place when you have organization, industry, infrastructure, bureaucracy, and access to banks. I think the work and the commitment of this committee, I pray and hope, will help lead to making sure that no one involved in crimes against humanity or helping that would ever be in a position to retain those blood-soaked assets. Secondly, we're talking about misleading history. The Swiss banks, despite their promises over a course of decades, we find out and confirm through the work of Neil Barofsky and his team, have withheld the truth. And we're only finding out that truth because of his efforts and because of the power of this committee. We need to make sure there's going to be accountability, and we have to deal with the facts as they are emerging and not just rely on institutional statements made decades ago. And finally, we need accountability for these activities, and we need to create a repository for the important documentation that has emerged as a result of Mr. Barofsky's research, and I might add, the intervention on the part of President Milei of Argentina, who's opened up, unlocked millions of documents within Argentinian archives. We need a repository for all that information, researchers, the media, young students, so that future generations can learn from the terrible errors of the past and not repeat them.
Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and I'm puzzled and hope we can clarify 1 or 2 points here. Mr. Karofsky, I think you have made it clear that you believe your institution has made a good faith effort to disclose information and to bring justice to this issue. The settlement agreement, the last payment was made 7 or 8 years ago, and it was $1.3 billion in total. As I understand your testimony, your bank, financial institution, did not produce the distribution table for this. It was done by others. And it still, at this point, puzzles me that there is a difference of opinion as to whether you've made full disclosure of relevant materials and facts. You have said in your testimony that your institution has disclosed 16.5 million documents provided to the Ombudsperson, and that there is a dispute over 150 documents remaining. I don't know if that's what Mr. Barofsky was referring to when he talked about full disclosure, but would you please clarify why you have not produced the disputed 150 documents?
Maybe I respond to this question, Senator, since it's a specific legal question. These are privileged documents, but I wanted to explain. So first, As Rob said, we really want to provide these documents, and we are actively looking into all possible options to provide these documents at the same time protecting, of course, the specific privilege that those documents are. This is a small set of documents. We are talking about less than 300 documents versus the 16.5 million documents that have been produced so far. And the reason that these documents, on this specific set of documents, we have claimed privilege is that these documents refer to the 1999 Holocaust litigation, which is a specific subject matter that we are threatened of litigation by the Simon Wiesenthal Center and others. So we wanted to clarify, and that's also the reason for the request of an order from Judge Corman, so that we can provide those documents to Mr. Barofsky so that he has full access to everything.
So let me ask either Rabbi Cooper or Mr. Barofsky, why do you believe these documents, identified as 150, at least in the statement by Mr. Karofsky, are so critically important that this matter still is in litigation?
Well, obviously, Neil Barofsky will have the answer, but just let me add the following. It's not about the number of documents. It's about really our last chance to learn the full truth. And to make this kind of intervention sort of at the ninth inning leads one to wonder why such steps would be taken. I'm not a lawyer, I'm only a rabbi. So, that's my burden.
In the hierarchy of things, you don't need to apologize.
Thank you, Senator. I'll sleep better tonight. I appreciate that. But I think it's important for why we're really here today. We're here using the continued efforts and power, bipartisanship of the United States Senate to finally get to the bottom of the truth. You've got a phenomenal team in Neil Barofsky and his team. I hope, as a result of this hearing, he can actually get access to the full picture and come back and give his report.
Mr. Barofsky, would you like to add anything?
Sure, I just want to be clear. I have zero interest in litigation documents, communications between lawyers and their clients. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about are documents that are relevant to the question of whether a Nazi had an account or didn't have an account at Credit Suisse. That's all I'm concerned about. And while 150 doesn't sound like a lot, you have to understand these are not just 1 or 2 page documents. These could be documents that are binders, 500 to 1,000 pages each. And when it comes down to what our investigation is, we're looking for needles in one of the most enormous haystacks you can imagine. Picture the final scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's what the Credit Suisse archives are. Like, you line documents from here, you almost get it back to my home in New York City. This is a massive amount of documents. And the number of relevant documents to date of our entire investigation isn't 16 million, that's the total amount provided. You're talking about tens of thousands of documents, max, that are actually relevant. And so all I'm concerned about are those documents that hit on our search terms, documents that relate to specific Nazi and Nazi enablers, even if it's a small number.
May I ask you a question? How long has these documents been in dispute?
Since about November of last year. And I will say up until that point, UBS's cooperation has been picture perfect.
Well, Mr. Karofsky, I think your testimony, written and oral, is an effort by your institution to be helpful and come clean. It appears that in this situation, for several months, you've been at loggerheads in dispute over these documents. Is there any chance we can resolve this in the near term?
Thank you, Ranking Member. We are trying, and I appreciate Mr. Barofsky's comments about our cooperation. As stated, we have provided 16.5 million documents, 44 million pages, 4 terabytes of data. We've provided access to 18 archives across 7 countries. We would like to resolve this issue, and we'll continue to work towards that. And we want to continue to cooperate. We want to find the truth, and we will continue to work towards that effort.
Well, from your lips, I hope that you're successful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is stunning to me here, 80 years after the end of World War II, that we're talking about this topic. But this isn't unique because recently we passed some important legislation that had to do with justice for Holocaust victims of Nazi looted art. And fortunately, we were able to pass that through the Senate, and now it's awaiting action in the House. I guess, Rabbi Cooper, as you were testifying, the saying by, I guess it's George Santayana, that those who don't remember history are condemned to repeat it. Is that one of the reasons why you think it's so important to get to the bottom of this story?
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for your leadership on that important legislation on art, stolen art. I think it's the core component, and I think it was one of the major motivations of Simon Wiesenthal after World War II to stick to a mission impossible, really. He brought 1,100 Nazi war criminals before the bar of justice, and he told me many times, I'm doing this as a warning to future potential perpetrators. I'm doing it for the education of younger generations, that they do not repeat those terrible decisions. And tragically, we live in a world today where a lot of those lessons have been forgotten, and a lot of those horrible decisions are repeated again and again. And it's why when I was asked by Chairman Grassley, I keep coming back to the fact that we need to remember that at the core of all these genocides, not only the ideologies of hate, but also greed, economics, and we're seeing it play out today.
Mr. Barofsky, I appreciate your statement that there's no such thing as an expiration date on accountability. That's really what we're talking about here. Can you help quantify for us what we're talking about, the universe of assets that Credit Suisse had and was involved with?
That is something that will be detailed in our final report. It's a difficult task because so many documents have been lost to history. When we are reviewing documents, oftentimes it's just a single document, a single account registry card, maybe all that we have to go on to prove a relationship. But other times we do have significant detailed transactional material. And so what we'll do in the final report is that to the extent that we have those documents that list asset amounts, that will all be spelled out. I think in my testimony today, which is only a very, very small number of the total accounts, it probably totals about 30 million Swiss francs in today's currency in these sort of more limited examples. But we'll have a lot more detail and a lot more significant assets in that final report, all of which will be laid out.
Was a privilege log given to you?
No.
Well, typically in a discovery proceeding in court, the court frequently will require the party asserting the privilege to provide a log, so you don't really know the scope of what the request might produce or what they're claiming as a privilege?
I don't know about the documents that have been withheld, but they've also redacted about 3,000 pages of documents. And so I do have a sense of what the topics are, and the topics do appear to be very relevant. I list them in my written testimony. It includes information about safety deposit box from the World War II era, listing German clients, Credit Suisse's involvement in looted arts, valuables, and securities transactions, investments in credit businesses with German entities under the Nazis, correspondence between the Bergier Commission, the investigative body of the Swiss government. So it appears, just from these redacted documents, that we're talking about things that are very, very core to the heart of our investigation.
What I'm trying to understand, and Mr. Karofsky, I know that when UBS acquired Credit Suisse in 2023, you probably didn't know exactly what you were getting into with regard to this current matter. But I guess what I'm trying to understand is who owns the privilege? Is it Is it UBS, the successor to Credit Suisse? Because ordinarily privileges can be waived. And maybe I'm missing something here, but maybe Ms. Levy or somebody can
Thank
enlighten
you.
us.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. So the UBS owns the privilege, and you are absolutely right that can be waived. We are put into a very.
So why doesn't UBS waive the privilege?
We don't waive the privilege on those specific documents because we have an active threat of litigation exactly on that subject matter from Simon Wiesenthal Center here and others.
So you're worried you might be sued? If
We
you
are
release
worried to be sued since we have received threats of that. We are in a very difficult situation. We are in between. We have embraced the review. That's why also in 2023, with the acquisition of Credit Suisse, we have rehired Mr. Barofsky, and as been mentioned, provided unfettered access to all the documents because we thought, exactly as has been said also by Rabbi Cooper, we believe that bringing to light this information is extremely important. That will help also future generation to know what has happened, to avoid this can happen again. And that is what we are all trying to do. But at the same time, if the same organization threatens us of litigation, we are put in a very difficult situation.
And who's threatening litigation? The Simon Wiesenthal Center?
That's correct.
Over your waiving the privilege
About,
and releasing those documents.
About the 1999 settlement agreement.
But it seems to me that the Simon Wiesenthal Center wants that information, and you're saying they may sue you for releasing it?
That's correct. This is why we have responded to the invitation from Judge Coleman, and we are seeking a clarification on the scope of the settlement agreement. And then once we will have that clarification, assuming that our interpretation of the settlement agreement is the correct one, we will be more than happy to release those documents to Mr. Barofsky to complete his review.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Rabbi Cooper just to comment on that briefly? Do you intend to sue if they release those documents that you would like to see?
You know, Senator, in 2 weeks, we're going to have the Jewish holiday of Purim. And it's the one day in our calendar year where we drink enough so we can't tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys. All I can tell, I'm only the rabbi, I'm not, got good lawyers behind me. They've brought us before the court years ago. We're still there. We've asked them to stop many times. They won't. So I would be thrilled today, and I think everyone here would be, if the bank is ready to confirm on the record that it's not pursuing or will not pursue any legal action against the Wiesenthal Center. And so, of course, Senator, you're 100% right. If the information is released, there's no basis for litigation. We're after the truth.
Thank you.
Before Senator Whitehouse, without objection, I'd like to introduce into the record February 27th, last year's letter I sent to President Milei of Argentina. In this letter, I requested Argentina archival records relating to Nazi rat lines. I thank President Milei for his commitment to this effort. President Milei has made publicly available substantial archival documents that were previously unreleased or classified. Senator Whitehouse.
Thanks very much, Chairman. I'm not sure if Mr. Barofsky, December 17, 2024 letter to us is already in the record. If it's not, let me ask that letter be put into the record by unanimous consent. Thank you. It has some very important information in it, and I want to make sure that it's part of the record of this proceeding. The document that I did put into the record earlier during my opening remarks is the July 31st letter from Credit Suisse's General Counsel, Jake Scrivens. And I just want to ask Mr. Barofsky, are you comfortable with that letter? Or, you know, lawyer to lawyer, are there little loopholes and weasel words and escape hatches and things like that in it that we should try to clear up?
For me, Senator, the operative document is our engagement letter, because that's what so clearly sets forth the obligations of the bank to cooperate. And that letter was entered into after that letter from Mr. Scrivens.
Yeah.
And so, under the terms of that letter, just to be clear, it requires UBS to produce all relevant documents, but it also includes several protections, including protections against claims of waiver of privilege. And so you have to remember that the whole thing was set up so that UBS, or at the time Credit Suisse, wouldn't be vulnerable to claims of waiver. And that's why, if you look in our December 2024 letter that you just referenced, we actually make reference there to one of these documents from Credit Suisse's U.S. counsel in the 1990s litigation to the bank, and that was disclosed with the consent of UBS. And so we had been receiving these types of documents really up until November, under the terms of this engagement letter, which is really broad in what it enables us to have access to, including privileged documents.
And just to be clear to our bank witnesses about the privilege assertions, you are the party for whom the privileges are being asserted. There's no third party involved. You're not defending somebody else's privilege. This is the bank's privilege, and under circumstances, if it was prudent for you, you are in a position to waive those privileges. There's no other third party that would have to be involved.
That's correct. We are, based on the engagement letter that Mr. Barofsky has mentioned, besides the fact that we have a different reading, there are specific provisions that specifically refer to the privilege, and that the bank can assert privilege. We are mainly concerned of third party claiming that the privilege has been waived if we provide the documentation to Mr. Barofsky.
Yeah. And, well, it seems to me that there's room here for an order from a court saying that because of these unusual circumstances, the documents can be shown to Mr. Barofsky, who's under contract to the bank and is to a certain degree its agent in this respect, and perhaps also to the Wiesenthal Center without the privilege being waived generally. I know that's the common rules, that waived for one is waived for all, but there may be a workaround here. Anyway, good luck to you, because it seems like an unnecessary quarrel that is tainting both Mr. Barofsky's ability to proceed and the reputation of the bank, which I think wants to be seen as cooperative and in good faith. So I'll just leave it at that. Back to you, Mr. Barofsky. In your testimony, you discussed new findings related to Credit Suisse's role supporting the Nazi rat lines. Could you elaborate on what you found now that you've got 2.5 minutes?
Sure, I would be happy to. So a lot of the work that we do is, as I mentioned before, is we find scraps of paper in the Credit Suisse archive, and then it's our role to fill out the context. And what we do that is we're very blessed to have on our team, as funded by UBS, which we have the greatest appreciation for, is a remarkable group of historians who are the world's leading experts in having studied the rat lines. And so what they've been able to do is we take the records that we've been able to find in the Credit Suisse archive. So that includes, for example, documents indicating that Credit Suisse was the landlord for something that was called the Argentine Immigration Office, which was the rat line that was run out of Bern, Switzerland. And also accounts that show that many of the key leaders, many of the key participants and several of the leaders of this rat line also had accounts at Credit Suisse during this relevant time. And so we take that and we match it up with some of those historical documents. So for example, evidence that the Argentine government sent over 1 million Swiss francs. So that's worth about 17 million Swiss francs in today's currency over to individuals who were running this rat line for the purpose of funding the illegal activity that was being ran there. And then we're able to tell from other archival documents how many of these key players in the rat line, what they were doing. And so there's information that shows that they had a bribery account, that they were bribing French officials, they were bribing Swiss officials. We have documents showing how these participants, these Argentines who are living in Bern, Switzerland, would work with individual Nazis, help them smuggle them across the border, intervene when they got arrested in order to spring them free so they could get to Argentina and to safety. Documents that show how this line wasn't just in Switzerland, but went all the way down to Italy, where they would get smuggled onto boats and shipped to Argentina. And the constant in this, again, is in order for this 1 million Swiss francs, which we think is an undercount of the total amount of money that the Argentine government sent over, and the ability to execute the rat line, there had to be banking relationships. There had to be a place to put the money, to withdraw the money. And so we're filling in, and by we, I really mean my historians, are filling in a gap of something that has been studied extraordinarily over the course of the years. But this was always one of the missing questions, was how did it work from a financial side? And so as we continue with this investigation, we're helping to answer one of history's unanswered questions about this massive smuggling operation.
Godspeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Karofsky, you are a senior executive at UBS, is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
And several years ago, UBS bought Credit Suisse, is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
And in doing so, UBS assumed Credit Suisse's assets and liabilities, didn't it?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. Can we agree that when the Nazis would conquer a country during World War II, that the Nazis would take the people's money? Is that correct?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, Senator.
Sure you know what I mean. They took people's money, didn't they?
Yes, Senator.
And that includes the money of Jewish people, is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
And the Nazis not only took their money, they took the hair from Jewish people and their teeth and sold them, didn't they?
Yes, Senator.
And they took the Jewish people's labor, didn't they?
Yes, Senator.
And ultimately the Nazis took the lives of many Jewish people, didn't they?
They did, Senator.
And the Nazis took all this money and put some of it in Credit Suisse Bank, didn't they?
They did, Senator.
Why did Credit Suisse take this money?
Thank you for that question, Senator. UBS and Credit Suisse's conduct, behavior during World War II was terrible and shameful.
Why did Credit Suisse take this money?
They took the money to presumably profit from it at that time.
Yeah, Credit Suisse took the money because they wanted to make money off of it, right?
It seems so, Senator.
And not only did Credit Suisse take this money, but Credit Suisse also helped many of their customers, Nazis, actually escape after Germany lost the war. Isn't that true?
Through the rat lines, yes, Senator.
Rat lines. They call them rat lines. Now, some in the Jewish community pointed this out to Credit Suisse. And Credit Suisse decided to hire Mr. Barofsky. Is that right?
Yes, Senator.
And Mr. Barofsky did his job, didn't he?
He has, Senator.
And in fact, he did his job so well that Credit Suisse fired him. Isn't that right?
Senator, I wasn't a part of those decisions.
Are you saying he did a bad job?
We are grateful for rehiring Mr. Barofsky, and he has done tremendous work.
Come on, Mr. Karofsky. Let's be honest here. You're under oath. They fired Mr. Barofsky, they meaning Credit Suisse, which you now own, because he was doing his job, didn't they?
I wasn't part of Credit Suisse at the time, Senator, so I am unaware.
Do you believe in the Tooth Fairy?
I do not anymore.
Do you believe in the Easter Bunny?
Not anymore, Senator.
Do you believe that Jimmy Hoffa died of natural causes?
I don't have a comment on that,
Of course, they
Senator.
fired him because he was doing his job. And then UBS bought Credit Suisse, and UBS, kudos to you, you rehired Mr. Barofsky. Is that right?
We did.
And he's rocking along doing his job. Only he gets too close again. And UBS has decided to take some of the relevant documents, this is pretty slick, actually, and give these documents to its lawyer and claim attorney-client privilege. Isn't that right?
With due respect, Senator, this is our investigation, which is being supervised by Mr. Barofsky, and we have provided cooperation.
You didn't take these documents and give them to your lawyer because you wanted your lawyer to disclose them at a press conference, did you? You gave these documents to your lawyer to hide them, didn't you?
Maybe I can.
I'm not talking to you, Counselor. I'm talking to Mr. Karofsky.
No, not to hide them, Senator.
Oh, you didn't? Well, why'd you do it then? Out of the goodness of your heart?
No,
In the interest of justice?
as my colleague mentioned, we've been fully cooperative.
You haven't turned over these documents.
We have not turned over the documents, Senator, because of the threat of litigation.
Ah, the threat of litigation. Oh, I see. Now, Credit Suisse, before you acquired them, paid $1.25, I think, billion in damages to the Jewish people. Is that right?
That was a collective settlement from Swiss banks.
Yeah, but that doesn't account for any new evidence of crimes, does it?
It does, Senator. It's for known and unknown claims, and the larger
so-
portion is for unknown claims.
So that's what this is all about. You don't want to pay any more money, do you?
No, the $1.25 billion is for known and unknown claims.
So your position is that Credit Suisse, whose liabilities and assets you assumed, paid $1.25 billion, and you're not paying a penny more. Is that right?
So we also paid. It was a collective settlement, and the
But
settlement
your
was
position is
final.
you're not paying a penny more. Is that right?
That is correct, Senator. It was accounted for
So that's
in the
what
unknown
this is
claims.
still all about, isn't it? The money.
For
It
us,
was about
it's
the
about
money.
finding the truth, Senator.
When your predecessor took the Nazi money, and it's about the money right now, isn't it?
I don't agree with that, Senator.
Oh, I see. What could it be about then? Principle? The sanctity of the attorney-client privilege? UBS, look, I don't hate anybody, sir. I want you to know that. But we all have a record. UBS got caught manipulating the LIBOR interest rate, didn't it? Had to pay $700 million for manipulating the interest rate. Isn't that correct?
Amongst other banks, yes, Senator.
UBS also got caught hiding the money of 52,000 Americans so they wouldn't have to pay taxes. Isn't that correct?
That was settled in 2009.
Yeah, you paid
Senator.
$780 million, didn't you, for doing that? Isn't that correct?
I'm not sure of the exact number, Senator.
I am. UBS also, just in recent history, decided to debank people whose politics you didn't like, didn't you?
No, Senator.
UBS said we're not going to do business with firearm-related companies or oil and gas companies and coal miners and crypto financiers, didn't you?
We provide fair access for...
But you debanked these people, didn't you? How noble of you. How wonderful it must be to be more righteous than the rest of us. Here's my advice, and then I'm going to hush, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your indulgence. I don't have anything against the good people at UBS. But the smart play here for you is to release these documents and let Mr. Barofsky finish his report and let the chips fall where they may, and then in front of God and country, if you owe more money, then by God, pay it. Because that's what this is about. It's all about the Benjamins. It was then, and it is now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for holding this hearing. I just want to follow up on Senator Kennedy's line of questioning. Mr. Karofsky, the information about these rat lines that has come out subsequent to the settlement, was that known to Credit Suisse at the time of the settlement?
We believe that Mr. Barofsky's findings are great findings. He did great work, and for us, it was new information through the investigation, and we're grateful for the work. We believe in the 90s it was known about rat lines, Senator, but the fact that the AIO established an office in a Credit Suisse branch in Bern, that AIO members had accounts at Credit Suisse, and I believe Mr. Barofsky also identified, including but also outside of the Bern branch rat lines, 51 in total names of individuals tied to rat lines that also had accounts at Credit Suisse.
So, Mr. Karofsky, it's your testimony that at the time of the 1999 settlement, that folks at Credit Suisse were unaware that they had participated in helping to finance these rat lines?
So I can't, speak to what was known at the time when the settlement, Senator, was being negotiated, which was why the component of the settlement were legal claims that were accounted for and compensated, which is the first part. At the second part, which was the majority, is for unknown claims that the banks agreed to pay for this moral accountability, understanding that the nature of the settlement encouraged us to continue to look, explore, and investigate.
So, but that presumes that this was an unknown claim at the time of the settlement. If Credit Suisse was aware of this, didn't disclose it, is it your position that the settlement would still cover that? Or would that, given that the party sitting across from the table wasn't aware of this, would that be outside the scope of that agreement?
No, so we would understand this to be as part of the unknown, since it was new information that we learned.
But that's presuming that it was unknown, right? Mr. Barofsky, have you identified any indication that these accounts were known to people at Credit Suisse at the time of the settlement? That is, that they had facilitated the rat lines?
Regarding the rat lines, no, we've not seen evidence that this was known at the time of the settlement.
And is it your view, Mr. Barofsky, that if this or other claims were known to Credit Suisse at the time, that it would be outside the scope of the settlement?
Senator, the settlement is really outside the scope of my engagement. I haven't really done an analysis of that.
And can you or Rabbi Cooper share with us who are some of the beneficiaries of the rat line? That is, who are some of the more high-profile beneficiaries of the Credit Suisse financing of these rat lines to get people out of Germany?
That is partly a work in progress. We identify in my written testimony a handful of the Nazis who we've confirmed were directly assisted by members of the rat line, but that work is ongoing. This was, many Nazis went to Argentina. The estimates are hundreds of war criminals made their way from Germany into Argentina. One of the things that we're still working on is, were all of them participants of the AIO rat line, or was it a subset of them? That's part of what we're working on. But some of the bold-faced names who've not yet directly tied, people like Adolf Eichmann, people like Dr. Mengele, they did transport from Germany into Italy, and on to Argentina, but we haven't confirmed their participation in this rat line quite yet.
And Rabbi Cooper, why Argentina? Why did Argentina become this mecca for fleeing Nazis?
Well, there was a strong German community in Argentina even before World War II, And of course, you had Juan Perón, who ideologically was very comfortable with what the Third Reich was involved with, and also, I think, economically benefited from that relationship. But Senator Schiff, I really want to thank you for raising the question because, especially for younger generations, you hear the term rat line. I think it's important, and we don't have, for sure, a direct connection on specific individuals that we've been able to learn yet, but we're talking about the architect of the Holocaust, Adolf Eichmann. We're talking about Dr. Joseph Mengele, the angel of death of Auschwitz, responsible for the death of 400,000, for the murder, 400,000 people, including medical experiments. We're talking about Walter Rauff, who was the person who invented the portable gas chambers. We're talking about the commandant of Treblinka, where 800,000 men, women, and children, Jewish children in Poland, were gassed to death. So the big names and the smaller names. And I can just also add, and I know if he was alive today, he would be so grateful to the chairman and everyone here for this hearing. These individuals would escape justice. Mr. Wiesenthal was up against an incredible series of red lines that made it so difficult. He was after Eichmann, they got Eichmann. Mengele avoided the bar of justice until the day he died. Ralph and others, when they were finally exposed, suddenly got sick and passed away in South America. So Argentina, politically speaking, ideologically speaking, in terms of the person running that country with an iron fist, was the perfect place. It was also a large country, and some of them left Argentina for Paraguay and other places in South America at a time when the world was ready to move on from World War II, and we're involved in other issues. A few people like Simon Wiesenthal had the courage to pursue it, and the reason it was so difficult, you have to lay some of that blame right at the Credit Suisse officials who facilitated the financing of these activities in the immediate months and years after World War II.
Chair, may I ask one last question? Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for holding this hearing, and thank you, Ranking Member Durbin. I just want to drill down a little bit further on the settlement and the connotations of that. Is this an issue about whether there should be further disclosure of other Credit Suisse activity, complicity, not just in the rat lines, but in any of these transactions with Nazis? Is this an issue of disclosure, or is this an issue of compensation? That is, you could take the position that the settlement caps the compensation, or you could take the position that we're not going to make any further disclosure because it would risk compensation. So I'm trying to get a sense of what's at issue here. I would imagine that, and this is sort of along the lines of what Senator Kennedy said, it would be advantageous to make the disclosure and not fight the disclosure. And if you take a position that any subsequent claim made on the basis of those disclosures is somehow barred, that seems to me a different issue for a different day. But I welcome you to share any other thought.
Thank you very much, Senator. I think it's very important to understand the settlement agreement. The settlement agreement in 1999 was an agreement to provide final closure. The parties were well aware that not all the information at the time was on the table. Berger was still, the commission at the time was still looking for information, in fact completed only in 2002, so it was clear that was anticipated that new information would have come to light. And I think that you get exactly to the right point. The parties at that point agreed to pay a certain amount that was based on specific legal claims, but there was, the majority of it was to cover the unknown. everything that would have come to light in the future. So today, the point is exactly that one. The settlement agreement does not preclude the banks or any other institution to continue to look for the truth, continue to look into the past and bring to light the new information. And this is what this committee is about, and this is where UBS is committed, and that's why we have engaged also Mr. Barofsky, and we wanted to get this right. It's so important that the information comes to light for how bad that can be. It's exactly the purpose, but cannot be that for every piece of information that comes to light, we get under the threat of litigated because this is new information. Where is the incentive then for any financial institution or any other institution to look into the past and bring this information to light?
Well, I think there's a great public policy interest and interest in the bank in making a full historic disclosure. So that to me has its own validity, quite separate and apart from any liability that attaches to it. I would just encourage to let Mr. Barofsky continue to do his work, give him access to everything that's relevant. If there's a subsequent claim by anyone on the basis of what's discovered, then you deal with it at that time. But I think making the historic record as complete as possible is a virtue in its own right. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For coming, Senator Cruz. I believe that he's the last person. In the meantime, I'm going to follow up on what Senator Schiff just said to Mr. Karofsky. And I would point to the question that Senator Durbin asked is, are you going to give the Inspector General access to all these records? And all I heard was you're going to try to work it out. I think a good faith relationship with this committee is that he gets access to these records, and working something out shouldn't be an issue at all. It's just a question of access to records. In the meantime, I've got to put in the record, without objection, 21 letters in support of today's hearings. These letters are from descendants of Holocaust survivors, Jewish faith leaders, and global advocates. I thank them for their stories and messages as we look to today's hearing as a way of safeguard truth and contribute to the historical record. Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great evil rarely announces itself all at once. It advances step by step, normalized, formalized, and excused, until conscious itself is numbed. Before there were gas chambers, there were broken windows. Before Auschwitz, there was Kristallnacht. And before the violence, there was theft. Legalized theft, bureaucratized theft, theft dressed up as commerce and neutrality. In present-day terms, $400 billion to $550 billion was stolen from the Jewish people. As persecution deepened, Jewish families sought refuge in Swiss banks, believing in the promise of neutrality. That refuge proved illusory. That promise proved hollow. Accounts vanished, records dissolved. Then came the cattle cars, bound for camps with no return. Economic annihilation was the prerequisite. Mass extermination was the goal. And in the end, the step-by-step normalization of theft, silence, and complicity culminated in the Holocaust. The systematic murder of more than 6 million Jewish men, women, and children. But the crime did not end with the war. For the survivors who returned, what awaited them was appalling. Swiss banks, including predecessors of Credit Suisse, refused to return stolen assets, allowing billions to simply disappear. After decades of delay, a settlement was reached in the 1990s, meant to bring truth, restitution, and closure. But later investigations revealed that vast numbers of Nazi-linked accounts and records had been withheld, allowing billions in victims' assets to remain concealed. And now we confront something even more disturbing. UBS, the successor to Credit Suisse, has gone to court not to disclose what was concealed, but to seek an order that would silence discussion of these crimes by Jewish organizations demanding accountability. That is not closure. It is the continuation of the wrongdoing, this time through the courts. Ms. Levi, in relation to the ongoing investigation into Credit Suisse's role in the Holocaust, your team has met with the Senate Judiciary staff numerous times. Is that correct?
That's correct, Senator.
And UBS has represented to Senate Judiciary staff that it will be cooperative.
That's correct.
UBS has also represented to Senate Judiciary staff that it will not sue the Simon Wiesenthal Center for investigating Nazi crimes. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have no intention to sue the Simon Wiesenthal Center.
Yet as you sit here today, UBS has a motion pending before federal court in New York seeking to enjoin the Simon Wiesenthal Center and over a dozen other Jewish organizations in America from ever researching, speaking, or publishing any content related to, quote, the Holocaust, World War II, and its prelude and aftermath, victims or targets of Nazi persecution, and transactions with or actions of the Nazi regime. Is that actually correct?
Senator, we responded to an invitation from Judge Coleman, and that order is a clarification of the same words that are in the settlement agreement of 1999. That is what we've asked. Simple clarification of the 1999 settlement agreement. Does not extend, is nothing new.
Did you or your office draft the proposed order accompanying that motion that seeks to legally silence 17 major Jewish organizations?
Senator, this is not to silent organization. This is a clarification of a settlement agreement that was signed by the same organization in 1999. And yes, I have reviewed that order.
And did you authorize your attorneys at Gibson, Dunn, and Mayor Brown to request the order from the judge?
That's, as I said, is a clarification of the 1999 settlement agreement to bring to an end the dispute. And actually, we wanted to do it before this hearing, exactly for the scope of the privileged document. If that order would have been issued by Judge Coleman before this hearing, we would have been standing here to say that the privileged documents that have been the issue with the investigation of Mr. Barofsky, we could have provided access.
Does it not strike you as bizarre that UBS has expressed its commitment to pursuing the truth, but is actively seeking court orders to silence it?
We are not seeking court order to silence. We wanted to solve the dispute.
Do you want the court to sign this order?
Yes.
So you are seeking the order?
We are seeking the order, but the order is just a clarification of a settlement agreement that was signed by the various Jewish organizations, including the Simon Wiesenthal Center, does not extend at all what was already agreed by the same organization.
So they were silenced already, so they should be silenced going forward. Mr. Barofsky, what is your view on the proposed order, and how would its potential issuance affect your ongoing investigation into Credit Suisse's ties to the Nazi Party?
I am concerned about the breadth of the order, that it could potentially inhibit or prevent Simon Wiesenthal Center from continuing to provide information and being a gateway for information relevant to this investigation. And let me be clear why I say that. This episode in front of Judge Corman was initiated in March of 2023, a letter written by Gibson Dunn, in which it laid out a series of lies, like lie top on top of lie on top of lie, where it accused me and the Simon Wiesenthal Center of entering into some sort of conspiracy by which Simon Wiesenthal Center made statements to me that were then reflected in one of my reports. And that's what started all of this. And let me be very clear how it came to be that I was getting information from from the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Credit Suisse hired me in part to solicit information from the Simon Wiesenthal Center. They were having a dispute. They weren't talking to one another. Credit Suisse very much wanted to get access to the information that Simon Wiesenthal Center had about the investigation into the bank's Nazi ties, but the Simon Wiesenthal Center didn't trust the bank. So they brought me in as independent ombudsperson and asked me if I could get that information. And to be very clear, the idea was I would get that information, include it in what would be a public report. And sometime in 2021, late summer, when I was having those negotiations with the Simon Wiesenthal Center, Credit Suisse asked me to meet with one of the signatories to this letter, Mark Cohen, who's at Mayor Brown. And they asked me to have a conversation with him because Mr. Cohen wanted at that time to go to Judge Corman to try to shut down the Simon Wiesenthal Center's speech around these issues. And I had that meeting with him, and I said to him, you can't do both. It's your choice, it's your bank, your client. But if you go to Judge Corman to muzzle the Simon Wiesenthal Center, you can't possibly ask me to continue to engage in conversations with them in order to get them to give information to me, which I will be including in a public report. And at the end of those conversations, I was informed that Mr. Cohen had agreed with me, that they decided that they were not going to go to Judge Corman, that instead they were going to continue to pursue the effort to find the confidential information that the Simon Wiesenthal Center had developed about Credit Suisse's ties to the Nazis so I could investigate them and include them in my final report. So fast forward, now there's a legal claim that's being made by the same lawyers who had made that decision, saying that Simon Wiesenthal Center's communications to me were violations of that settlement agreement. So I am worried. I need the Simon Wiesenthal Center to continue to broker our conversations with the Argentinian government to potentially get access to those archives and any other information that they uncover, as they have been since I've started this matter. And I'm worried that if this order is signed, it's going to inhibit them from doing so, lest they get on the wrong side of Judge Corman.
Remarkable. With the chairman's indulgence, if I could ask one more question. Ms. Levy, has UBS conducted any review or audit, historical or forensic, to determine whether its vaults, custody services, or financing arrangements ever involved art looted from Jewish families during the Holocaust?
I will need to take that back.
Okay, well, I would ask that you answer that question in writing. We will submit it to you in writing, and I would ask that you answer it in writing, and we will have a series of questions on that topic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, everybody, for attending this hearing. Thanks for our panel. Our meeting is adjourned.